So this kind of will that we create that goes along like the Robin to Batman is what we call a pour-over will. It picks up those assets and pours it into the trust. However, if those assets total value is over $150,000, they're going to have to go through probate to get into that trust. And that was one of your objectives of creating the trust in the first place, to avoid probate. So let's get them in the trust because we don't want to have to go through probate. Now, a while ago I said that creditors' claims for a trust is going to be a year. If a creditor issue is a big problem and we want to create a trust to avoid probate, we can submit that trust to a court proceeding to cut the creditor's claims down to 4 months as well. But that's what you need an attorney to help you accomplish. Probate, I've actually just talked about it. It is a court proceeding where the court supervises the administration of the estate until it's done. People often ask how much it costs and how long does it take. A pretty simple probate in California takes about a year. And it will cost a percentage of the size of the estate. For a $500,000 gross value estate, not net, gross, it's going to cost about $13,000 for attorney's fees, $13,000 for the executor, plus a couple of thousand for court costs. So we're talking probably close to $30,000 for a $500,000 estate. So it's not an inexpensive thing to do. Of course, your executor is probably one of the beneficiaries of your estate in the first place, so it's not money leaving your estate. I want to point out that even if you don't go through probate, your estate is going to need administration anyway. That trust is not the end of when you create it, is not the end of the story. After you pass on, it's got to be administered. We still have to get the assets retitled. We still have to deal with creditors. We still have to deal with people who might be upset about the whole thing. We still have that brother who won't leave mom's house. And how do we get the house sold and get the money distributed if your brother won't leave the house because he's lived there forever? So we still have problems, and you are still going to need to hire an attorney in order to get that done. But the fees are not set, and you can negotiate with the attorney as to what the fee's going to be. It's usually done on an hourly basis, but some attorneys will do it on a percentage or flat fee. So long-term care planning is, so after we do estate planning, as an elder law attorney, I am always thinking about long-term care, because what's going to happen with your assets when you die is is one question, but the second question is, what if you don't die right away and you need long-term care for a long time before you pass on? How are you going to plan for that? So in California, we are going to be thinking of how do we fund your care while you're in a chronic illness state. How are we going to protect assets? How are we going to make sure that your care is good? How are we going to make sure that that you have the right to stay where you want to be as far as your aging? Are you going to be able to stay home? You're going to be able to stay in an assisted living versus going to a skilled nursing. All of those issues are wrapped up in long-term care. Sometimes it's not going to be possible to do exactly what you would prefer, but we do the best we can, and we help guide your family through it. So long-term care planning will involve eligibility, or at least looking at eligibility for Medi-Cal and VA benefits. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about both of those later, so I'm not going to do it now. But these are the kind of things that are of concern in long-term care planning. Life care planning includes the kinds of things that we were concerned about in the long-term care planning, but it's a growing concept among attorneys across the nation that we're not just looking at the legal financial issues, we're looking very much at the quality of life and the peace of mind for the elder and the family about how mom is being cared for. So it's not protecting the assets for just the kids, it's protecting the assets first to provide for the elder, if we do go on public benefits, to be able to provide an extra fund of money to be able to pay for extras that Medi-Cal isn't going to pay for, or to augment the VA benefits. So the long-term care planning is the concept about linking care and financial and legal issues. If you've done no planning, or if the planning is falling apart because the family is in conflict, or if you've done planning but you don't think you need anybody's help yet, then sometimes we get into conservatorships. Those are pretty much the three things that take us to conservatorship. Conflict in the family over how to care for mom and dad, even if we have someone having a power of attorney or an advance directive, trust, whatever. The other family members think that what's happening isn't appropriate. So then sometimes we end up in conservatorship. Sometimes we end up in conservatorship when you haven't done your planning. There is nothing to hook onto to be able to handle affairs for you. And the other is where you don't, the elder has done all the planning, but they basically say, I can do it myself. I don't have any, none of you have any of the people that you're caring for, none of them think that they're not disabled, right? So that sometimes happens where the elder thinks that they're just fine, just leave them alone, get out of my way, and leave me alone, and that they can handle their assets. Sometimes we have abuse situations going on, and it might be a family member, it might be a friend that's doing the abusing, it might also be scams. The number of scam artists that attack the seniors is enormous. As soon as that senior gets identified by one scam kind of organization, they spread the word to the other ones. And we have literally had to conserve clients sometimes who didn't and wouldn't accept the fact that what was happening, what the callers that were trying to get them to send money was a scam. We actually had a lady one time, she had a couple of $1 million. She'd done very, very well during her lifetime, and by the time her 3 sons came to an attorney, she'd given away about $100,000. Now, she had a couple of million, so she's not in danger yet, but they were constantly trying to get her to send more and more money, and it was, just send us $20,000 more and we're going to send you $3 million. It was, she'd won a lottery or something of the sort, and she kept sending the money. We had one of the scam companies who even sent a taxi to the house to take the elder to the bank, to the ATM, and then they were going to take them to Western Union to send the money. They are very, very aggressive when they find an elder who is unable to make reasoned decisions here about sending the money. They know that this is a very vulnerable group. So sometimes we have a conservatorship because that lady was absolutely 100% convinced that she was just fine.